Hello, everybody. I'd like to welcome you to another episode of Onion Soup, the show where we pull back the layers of metaphysics and reality in order to demystify spirituality. And we have a wonderful guest with us today, Mr. Andy. How are you doing today?
Thank you for asking. I'm feeling blessed to be here in this time and space to talk to you. I'm positive we would have a blessed and meaningful conversation that would inspire and motivate to do the same and perhaps transcend limitations. That would be awesome.
Yes, definitely. I'm so excited to have you. So, a moment ago, we were talking about I asked you if you were a shaman, and you were talking about being born at really a certain level of spirituality, a certain level of energy before. So, can you go more into that?
Sure. So before I would like to say that to a degree, anyone can be a shaman, since shaman is basically having an ability to observe reality for what it truly is without any biases of the mind, so without any pollutions of the mind. You see without what you want to see, you see what there truly is, and you hear what there truly is. So that basically takes you to be spiritually awake and conscious, and to a degree everyone can do that. But on this plane, on this planet, you usually are born on particular karmic incarnation. So it's not only your genes, your society, your family, your loved ones that impact your life. It's also about how old your soul itself is. And usually there are seven levels, as it relates very highly to energy centers called chakras, as you know. And the first three are actually about survival. One funny thing is actually the higher the level, obviously the game gets harder and harder, as all games do tend to do that, but you tend to live much longer and you tend to manifest much faster. But obviously there is the price. And each level is different, that it takes different things to win. For example, the first level is basically if you survive, but usually people on that level don't live that long. The second one is if you would be able to reproduce and have family. That's going to be a win for you, and you might expect that you would be incarnated on a high level. The third one is a very particular level, because you have to go beyond your mind, because people on that level usually want to understand everything with their minds, and it's very dangerous way to perceive reality, because what you perceive is just an extension of your mind. You see what's within you. So that's a very particular level to be on. The fourth one is actually the heart level, where people actually need to align their heart properly in their bodies between heaven and earth. So they don't take life by their mind, by their thoughts or emotions, they take it by the heart. And once they do that, they actually reach the fifth level, when they basically realize to know oneself, you need to experience yourself through all array of emotions. As you won't be able to, if you would be eating only rice, you would definitely get some issues sooner or later. So this is very similar with that. And eventually, once you experience reality through the lenses of your thoughts, of your emotions, then the soul yearns to see what truly is there. And there is this small window opening between your eyebrows, usually between your eyebrows, but that depends. The more the more soul you are, the less you think, the less matter you are. That window is actually bigger. And through that window, the soul takes peeks to see what the reality truly is. And it's something completely different. On that level, you are blessed with more or less some psychic gifts. And then there is the seven layer, the last one that you can be born, which is a sage level, which basically you have a cosmos within you, and that is a very tough level to be on, especially since you don't really have many people to talk to. And to transcend that level, to be a holy man and eventually maybe even enlightened, you need to let go of absolutely everything of that cosmos you have within. And I'm not saying about your favorite food, your favorite TV drama. I'm saying things like your family, your body, your mind, your soul, literally everything. If there is any form of attachment, which I don't know if you know, but all attachments eventually, as cravings, lead to pain. And this is the ultimate lesson. This is like the last test before you can be fully free. And yeah, that was the conversation.
I think that's so wonderful, and I 100% agree with you with each of the chakra energies being represented with a different stage, not just in life, but in what we need to accomplish perhaps throughout our entire lives. Because sometimes, like you said, you might be here just for some sacral chakra healing or some solar plexus chakra healing. And very few times do people go through the entire cycle in one lifetime.
That would be completely amazing because once you're born, the channels are not usually open. So you can work on that particular chakra, but if it's not open, it's not. It's gonna be counterproductive. Actually, it's gonna be more harmful than it would do you good. Basically, uh, all flowers bloom in due time, and what that teaches us that if you force a flower to bloom, that flower might not even bloom or cease to be what makes it a flower. So nature never rushes,
Yeah.
but yet everything is done on time. So the lesson is that we as humans shouldn't rush as well, because, well, first of all, if we rush, we want more things to be done. We eventually end up in this fight or flight syndrome where our body releases cortisol, and eventually our body will be destroyed by those chemicals.
Mm,
And it's not really beneficial, obviously. In Eastern approach of life, they say that it creates this wind. This is that gonna wreak havoc upon within your body, and it's gonna again crumble. So it's two different approaches of life. We have the Western one and the Eastern one. Our Western approach of life is, I would suppose, yeah, rather young, and due to that, we often operate on premises that we can understand everything with our minds, with this so-called laboratory glass. But there is this thing like confirmation bias, and that basically makes your brain want you to be right. It's also called placebo, self fulfilling prophecy, or basically faith, because life will be anything you want, and because we will observe it this way, and for us it will be true. For someone else, it might be something completely different.
mm.
So this is something very magical, and also on the other hand, it causes so many grave mistakes, and because two people can perceive one thing in a very different manner. So in their eyes, what they receive is actually right and true, but for the other person, it's something completely opposite. So they even argue, they clash their minds, or even fists, or something even worse. And that is not beneficial for our humankind. I think we are here to solve problems, and the more problems you solve, well, the higher you go.
Yeah, I love that. I love what you said about confirmation bias. And I oftentimes tell people that, well, first of all, I start with, I think, therefore I am, and you think, therefore you are. So the things that you think of, that's really what's going to be reflected in your reality. And when we look at confirmation biases, what tends to happen is we find things that are in alignment with our core beliefs, but sometimes those core beliefs need to be rechecked and, we have to dive into the things that we thought we knew and thought that we really just enjoyed before we can move forward and to grow. I mean, unless you question who you were in the past, how can you expect
Mm.
to grow into the future?
So if you could perceive values like a signpost that will show you direction to the nearest city, but once you reach that city, they would be useless and they should be discarded, and you should actually need other signs to get you farther down the line. So this is, I believe, amazing thing because reality is truly what you want to be, what you want reality to be. It's gonna be, and we just keep forgetting that we are fully responsible for what surrounds us because we not only we did co-create it to a large degree. You might say that this society keeps telling us what we should be, and it is because TV program is called a program for a reason. Many people use other people as extensions of their minds, and when you go down that path, it's very eventually you will lose yourself in the process. You will lose your self-respect only to find grief and sadness because you're living somebody else's life. But the thing is, everyone else is already taken, so you need to be you. Like if you take an apple seed and plant it into the soil, is there any chance that somehow magically it would turn to a grapevine? No, it will only grow to apple tree. So nature again teaches us that it is what it is, and if you are able to go beyond your thoughts, your emotions, and to really align yourself with life, to have an empty mind, like an empty cup, because only when empty it can be filled. With open heart, you can truly experience the magic of life.
How do
And
you do that? How do you let go? How do you free yourself from thoughts and emotions?
so, if let's take for example, if you would fight those thoughts, what's going to happen? The thoughts become stronger, and they will, like an arrow from, if you pull an arrow from a bow, it's very similar effect that's going to come to you back 10 times fold. So you cannot really invest in those patterns. In Shaolin monastery, they do what they say is that if you're spiritually awake, the karma decreases, eventually dissolving. And what has been explained for our people in Western culture, since we have different upbringings, is basically the less you think, as thoughts are energy as well, because our brain is very similar to a computer that runs on electricity. It processes data, makes decision. The difference is that it runs on different type of frequency. It's sometimes low, sometimes high, but we have around 60 or 70,000 thoughts per day. The problem is that most of those thoughts are reoccurring. So what happens is you have a thought about something, then you put it into action, then it creates an experience which crafts your character, and then it makes your reality. So we see that if we continue to do the same things over and over again, it's gonna keep us to the same us, and eventually we're gonna be trapped in this bubble of our old selves providing the same set of information to our genes. And once you do that, the genes will down regulate, provide weaker proteins, and by that you would get out pretty much. And if you are able to keep that energy from the thoughts to yourself, then you would be able to use it to healing or manifesting your dreams. That's something very to consider because all human beings, as a result of basic living activities like thinking, feeling, are surrounded by this electrochemical field that we spiritual people call aura. And based on karmic incarnation level, it has different color. People say, well, at least in the past, that it was up to 8 meters, which is 25 feet. But since nowadays we overthink so much, we overfeel so much, especially negative emotions, which then release chemicals that impact our body in the wrong way. That field itself is depleting, and that field is very essential when we need to change, because the only way to change long term is to change our energy, so our feelings and thinkings.
Wow. I definitely want to dive more into that. But before we do, we're going to take a really quick word from our sponsors. Back in a sec.
Sure.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back. So, before we left, you were talking about cleansing your energetic field and also cleansing your physical field. So, I know you dealt a lot in neurolinguistic programming. How does one utilize that in order to clear their energetic field?
Honestly, I wouldn't recommend that because NLP works only on the mind. And when we have a pattern, let's say we're addicted to overeating, right? Or I don't know, smoking or drinking, it the experience is followed by release of chemicals which we call feeling, and eventually the body itself got addicted to those chemicals. So we're not only craving on the mind level but on the body as well. So then what's going to happen if you change it only on the mind level? Those two forces will crash. And since they're on the different duality, it's like clashing of water and fire. And it's going to impact the vessel, which is the body. So it's going to significantly decrease your potential. If I would compare it, I would say that if you would put a boiling water into the glass and put it into the fridge, something gonna break, and that's what's gonna break is the glass. And in this case, it's gonna be the body that's gonna take the impact. So I don't really recommend NLP. What I would recommend, first of all, I would recommend some Chinese martial arts to open the meridians, to open the energy flow. Also, yoga is very good for that manner. It actually depends a lot on your lifestyle because martial arts are very dynamic and yoga not so much. Like, for example, I used to sit a lot in front of the desk in the same position. So it was very like an asana. And actually, that's something that's a possible side effect of meditation as well. If you sit in prolonged cross-leg position, it's going to impact your energy flow. That's why it's always beneficial for to take a massage before and after meditation. But let's say you take those first steps, you start some Chinese martial arts like kung fu to open the meridians, to open the energy flow. What's also going to happen is that by doing these activities, you will release the pent up energy, and you're doing it on physical level. It's always the best. And then if there are some imbalances in particular organs, I would suggest like qigong, tai chi, and that would really make it go very well. Obviously you could do it via meditation as well, to make some, let's say you're addicted to fear or anger, you could go really deep into meditation to reach this state, what was called a kingdom in the Bible. or what we in our culture, I suppose we called it quantum or void. Basically, you need to connect yourself with everything that surrounds you so you can use that energy from your surrounding to change you from within. It's basically like a prayer on a very high level because you allow God to do it for you, since God or universe or nature, however you perceive it, is everything that surrounds us, and we are just a part of it. We are just the part of the puzzle, a piece of the puzzle. If you perceive it like that, and if you are able to reach that state of the mind, it is possible to make changes literally in seconds, that you would be free of something that has been hindering you for so long. You just flick your finger and poof, you're free. And then you can use that energy to create, to heal. So that's amazing.
Wow. So I love being able to, when people talk about the physical aspects as well as the spiritual, because while they're both intertwined, there are different techniques to heal the physical body as opposed to healing the spiritual body. You don't necessarily want to use the physical techniques for the spiritual side and vice versa, the spiritual for the physical.
Well, I think we as a culture are very young in understanding those arts. And what I believe is that once those arts like Tai Chi, Qigong, yoga, martial arts got incorporated into our culture, it lost its roots.
Mm,
Like I've been on countless different classes and nobody teaches rooting, which is a basic concept of the body. It's seriously, well, I'm a Shaolin apprentice currently, and this is something that they highlight quite a lot, basically on all the classes, since this allows you to be grounded and allows you to release that excess pent up energy. Not only that, it since rooting is basically grabbing the floor with your feet, like you would be sucking the floor, or you would be like a monkey grabbing a tree branch. What it allows you to do is not only to release that pent energy, but since there are so many nerve endings in the foot, it massages your inner organs and well-beings. But since we have forgotten that, what I found is that Qigong makes your mind corrupted, yoga makes your mind weak, and martial arts basically evolve into two guys fighting like a
mm.
chickens in a cage. So there was actually an interesting concept because martial arts got incorporated into our culture by Bruce Lee. And once again, all flowers bloom in due time, and eventually we were not ready. And this, according to many people that are highly spiritual, that this is the reason that they died, that he died, because he did something really bad in the long run. Because we were simply not ready. In the back in the day, kung fu essentially means hard work. It's a spiritual. By working the body, you work the soul. And what we done it is that you actually use it for aggression, completely opposite of spiritual growth. It's actually an ego growth. So we as a culture, I suppose we would be hindered with those things for quite some time still. And I guess that's it.
Huh. Interesting. I've never heard it put that way, actually. But honestly, I think it makes sense when you think about the origins of martial arts, the origins of yoga, and the origins of qigong. I think that inevitably all of those practices were going to make it over to the West, but perhaps when they came over, there was a lot of the roots and a lot of the origins of the practices lost. So I can definitely see that. That's really interesting. I'm gonna have to go look into that honestly. But
Yeah, yeah. What happened is basically it became a fitness class. Like
yeah.
there's not much impact on the soul these days on that. And because what I believe that one of the oldest art is actually yoga, because actually even Shaolin monasteries have roots in yoga. It comes from a person called Bodhidharma that traveled from India to China, and the monks were really impressed with him because he meditated pretty much every living second of his life. And he noticed that before Shaolin is what it is today, they were really in bad health. So he provided them set of exercises so they could elevate their well-being. But after some time, many of the war generals used that place to retire. So then they first become warriors and then monks. So this is something I believe had significant impact on that history, and I believe that we, if we want to use physical exercises to grow our soul, it should have three components, which is the breathing, which is the flow of the movement, and being spiritually awake. We as a society are often preoccupied with left part of the brain, or we need to do this many repetitions, this many sets, but that kind of thinking depletes our energy, and it in the long run we need rest days, we need some cheat meals because we are not able to cope with that intensity because we're not in the moment whilst doing those activities. And for example, a Shaolin monk is training up to 7 hours a day, every day, and that's a lot. And I think for me it was very similar when I was so focused on reps and repetitions. I usually get tired very easily and was overwhelmed with all those things that I need to do. Once I just let it go and started to be in the moment, I actually do enjoy it, and I feel that it is making me stronger. And there is this moment that I know when it is enough, and then I just take some time off, and then I go back to the training in few hours or so. And I think this is like the most beneficial way to train for spiritual consciousness. That you don't train long, you train very frequently. Like you do one pose, let's say 6 times a day, and that would enable to energy to flow within your body where it's most needed.
Mm. Wow, yeah. I 100% get that. I feel like when I go to the gym and I exercise, I used to go when I was a lot younger and just go for hours, but I never really counted repetitions. And then now when I go, I find myself like almost looking at the clock and I need to do this for an hour.
Yeah.
And it's funny you say that because recently I was questioning myself about that. Why am I so fixated on making sure that I'm doing an hour's worth of work instead of just being there and
Yeah.
enjoying it? And then when I need rest, I'll go take some rest. We only have about a minute or so left. Is there anything you want to leave the audience before we go?
Sure. So, if you're interested in what I'm saying, and if you would like to change your life dramatically, or if you are a psychic or an empath that is struggling with their day to day challenges, sponging negative people emotions, unable to set boundaries, unable to breathe in social settings, unable to build intimate relationships, or just feel that you're constantly out of energy, just visit my webpage, courage-catalyst.com, or find me on Facebook. My handle is Empath Catalyst, and let's see if there's something we can do about that. And
Awesome.
obviously, thank you for listening.
Also, thank you for coming on. I truly do enjoy your time, and I want to dive more into the Shaolin way, honestly. So we might have to have you back on.
Sure, awesome.
And thank you, everybody, for tuning in to this episode of Onion Soup. Have a great
Thank
one.
you.
Bye.
Bye.